GM. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning from California, I suppose. Yeah, pretty early for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Got to get that rise and grind.
There you go. Where are you guys?
I'm Nashville, so it's 10 a.m. for me.
Okay.
I'm over in Barcelona.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's 5 o'clock over here, and I'm actually meeting a punk in 2 days. Jimmy Swag is coming to Barca, and we're having coffee. So it's pretty cool.
Amazing. That's the Forever Punk signature. Get many cappuccinos and lattes.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we got connected through Punks Club. Like there was a notification that he's coming to Barcelona, and then I just wrote to him, and then that's a good use case.
There we go. That's a good case study right there. Yeah, I've been enjoying the check-in, check-out feature of Punks Club. And then when I did my LA meetup, which is where I first connected with MCB in real life, we did that on Punks Club as well. And I think through the Telegram. How did you find it, MCB? Just through Twitter?
I think I found it on the Telegram. Yeah, I saw something about I think yeah, I must have seen something and then I got it in the LA Punks group. Um
Nice.
yeah, I brought my daughter. I think you met her, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, I,
My
I remember
da-
her. She was like, I had to put a
Thanks.
moonbird on her face for the punk picture.
Yeah, and she was the inspiration for the punk that I have now because her name was Poppy. So the red flower, the red hair. I have a female punk. So
Amazing.
kind of funny having her there. Yeah, yeah. We made
Yeah.
the dog tag for her.
Exactly.
It's a
Yeah, that
punk
was a
number.
fun day. I'm hoping to get back out there late June, early July, talking to Will Cox about getting him to come as well. And maybe we'll do another 2.0, same spot, same peeps.
Oh, would love that. That'd
So
be
what's new
awesome.
with you, man?
Yeah, I just had like a half hour journal session, just writing everything that has been going on in the past few months. I'm working on a handful of projects, man. Just keeping myself busy. Um, Working on a podcast project actually with another friend. That's yeah, kind of like an audio visual podcast idea that I'm really excited about, and working on like a photography platform idea that's not Web3, but but it's fun. And then I'm just working on my own stuff. I gotta like have some jobs, so feel super super fortunate to have some work, photography work coming in, and yeah, and I have like a new AI project, and so yeah, I'm just and also trying to follow along as closely I can, and the Web3 space and NFTs, and over the past couple of weeks got into the meme coin trading a little bit, which was a lot of fun, and a couple of these DJing chats that I was in. So yeah, it's been exciting.
Amazing. Well, I always thought it was pretty neat that you were a National Geographic photographer. I never got big into photography, but as a kid, I was always so inspired by everything that they were doing. And then, weirdly enough, I think it was when I went to Korea for the first time last year. I I was blown away with the number of people repping the National Geographic brand. Like it's like a really cool brand to wear on a t-shirt out there. And I didn't really see that as much in the States, but I thought that was like kind of funny. I guess people around the world, like it's just a globally powerful brand.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's really kind of funny because um there's generally the kind of photography that the Nat Geo photographers are known for is like wildlife or underwater, or um, something geography oriented. So when I meet sort of anyone in general, and they ask me like, oh, like how's photographing lions in Africa? I saw the other day, yada yada yada. Whereas the kind of work I do it's more geopolitical work. It's more like human culture based. But I mean, I have done like like a variety of projects over the years. I used to work on the adventure stories for Nat Geo back in the day when I had a little more energy and a little more power. But yeah, but I mean, it's kind of amazing. I started as an intern there years ago, coming out of college. I won this. They had an award, probably still around. It's called the Photographer of the Year Award. So I got that award, and then I had this internship, and so that really opened up my whole career from then. I was living in New York not long after, and just yeah. And I've always kind of, I mean, for me, Nat Geo at the end of the day is um, more of a family. I mean, I still do work for them here and there, but it's I have a lot of friends there, and at the end of the day, I just sort of I love working on projects with them when I can, but I also feel like, especially more recently, that I'm sort of growing into more of an um, more artistic sort of direction that kind of started with these photography books that I began making a few years ago. So it's exciting, and I'm just like I'm really excited to sort of try new things and new techniques that like use the photographic image in new ways. So
So would you describe your like relationship these days with Nat Geo as more of kind of like a gig based type work where you're
Mhm.
in their roster, and when they have a job and you kind of fit the mold, they might ask you, "Hey, are you free for this gig?" And then you're like, "Yay,
Yeah,
nay."
yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean,
Hey guys, can you
the
hear me?
photog
I'm not sure if I'm like,
yeah, the
Yeah, we can hear
photographers.
you.
Oh, yeah. So the photographers. I think now there's probably like 100, more than 100 photographers, and everyone's a freelancer, and so everyone sort of has an area that they specialize in. So we used to be years ago that they had photographers on staff when they had the budget for that, and when they could spend that. But yeah, now everyone's a freelancer, and really, so much of it, like anything else, is just in the marketing and staying persistent and submitting ideas and proposals. And so I'm still like somewhat active with that. In fact, we've been trying to get a story approved over the past year that's about the mushrooms. So I've worked on a few smaller stories over the past year about mushrooms, but I think this is something that could be a really fun project, and especially if I can sort of somehow combine it with AI. But but yeah, more and more, the business of photography, at least the genre that I've always worked in, has been switching to, as there are more photographers, more cameras around the world, and more people who can do these jobs. It's really a lot of it kind of depends on where you are, where you're based, what you're working on, um, and yeah, like years ago, at some point, they would fly you like halfway across the world to work on something. That still happens, but it's much more rare these days because yeah, there's just more people who can do this kind of work, and also obviously like using locals over foreigners has a lot of benefits. And so yeah, that's kind of
Yeah,
where
wow.
where we're at.
So
Yeah.
how would you say you split your time these days? Because obviously you've got about almost 20 years under your belt with Nat Geo, and you're doing some art. Seems like AI based art on Air Lab Co. Is that kind of like 50-50, or are there some other things in the fold? I'd be really curious because what you've been working on at Air Lab Co. I actually didn't realize it was you, but I've seen your pieces a few times. They've like come across my like because I'm a Cuban American, and so your pieces came across
Yeah.
my feed, but I didn't piece it together until yesterday when I was preparing for the
Oh
space that
wow.
they were yours. So, but yeah, I guess the question is, how are you splitting your time right now between those two things?
Um. Yeah. I mean, I've always kind of like had my hands in a few different projects at the same time. Especially now, I have a child and a mortgage and all these other things I gotta pay for. So I'm sort of the kind of depends on like what is most pressing in any moment. I mean, at this point, I've got, yeah, I have a couple ad jobs lined up, and I have a workshop coming up in Congo, and I have this podcast project that I'm working on with a friend, this audio video visual podcast, and then this photography platform idea um, that we've been workshopping. So it's really yeah, and then the AI projects are just like so for me. Really, I was explaining this the other day to a friend. It's kind of the first time in my life that I feel like an artist. Um, that I feel like I can fully express my vision. So I'm working on a project now. I've been working on this for the past month or so. That's about sort of future climate that is based around my hometown, which is in the Skagit Valley in Washington State, which is a farming community that I grew up in. So I wasn't the the son of farmers, but I grew up like working in the fields occasionally, and my house was literally located right in the middle of the farm field. So this idea of like what the future is going to look like, what the possibilities are, um, is really exciting. And part of that is just because much of my work over the years has been, I would say, um, sort of reporting on all the problems of the world in some ways. Um, Whatever's in the news, and a lot of that comes from working as a photojournalist, working as a news photojournalist, and at some point a conflict reporter, and spending a lot of time in places um, focused on the kinds of stories that may show up in the news, but may not feel as generative. So, so part of what I'm doing now is trying to focus on creating work that is more closely connected with the kind of future that I want to see. Um, and at the same time, taking into consideration, the reality of where we may very well be in the near future, climate wise. So that's really exciting for me, just working on that and feeling like I can fully express uh, part of my vision. I mean, I'm still learning about these AI tools. I don't really have a scientific mind. But I've been looking into training my own model and dream booth with stable diffusion, and just realizing that there's just millions of possibilities with this new tech, and ways to tell stories that is just super inspiring. And many of the artists in the NFT Web3 space are the people who I'm just um, really following closely and trying to learn from.
Who's caught your attention in kind of the AI powered art space, whether it's Web3 or not? I'd be curious because it sounds like you've gone a little deeper down the rabbit hole than I might have.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many artists. I mean, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but Renisto is super inspiring, and just the amount of work he's doing. Actually, I heard a space that was recorded with Fellowship, and Alejandro Cardeña recorded a space with him the other day, where he talks about his video work that he's doing, um, which is also viewable on his Instagram, which is like really phenomenal. I'm just really impressed with the amount of work he's creating, and his experimentation. And then there's another artist who- whose work I really love. I think he goes by AI Sam, AISAM, and then there's Katie Morris, and I mean, there's so many people. And again, like Fellowship AI, I feel like has a really amazing group of artists there. And yeah, just kind of sort of following their work and getting ideas, and then learning um, how they work. And I think it's like such a fertile time now, because the tech is at a place where where um where the imagery is photorealistic looking, and also it's not super hard to generate that imagery. It just kind of takes a certain amount of training and educating oneself to do it. So,
So this piece above, is this yours?
which piece?
I pinned it in the space, just
Oh,
here, 90 miles.
yes.
So tell me about this. This is the one that caught my eyes like a few weeks ago, and I mean, I was drawn to it visually, and I was kind of reading about it afterwards, and I was like, oh shit, this is like AI generated, and it has to do with Cuba. So like, tell me a little bit more about this collection and how you're using AI and why Cuba.
Yeah. So, um, my work in Cuba began like in 2014. Started with a job after Obama's announcement of new relations with Cuba. And I spent a couple months in Cuba, and then I came back, and then I went back, and I kind of did that um, so many times over the following 3 years until around 2017 or so. So I spent a lot of time working in country, working on a variety of projects, and one of the projects that I couldn't get. I mean, of course, at the end of the day, like the, um, the work that I've always made over the years really depends on access because I work with humans. I photograph humans, and it's all relations. And much of the stories I photograph, many of the stories that I've made in the past have been somewhat complicated access wise.
Right, and, like, if you're a
And
tourist,
then there's
they
a lot.
kind of, like, have you on rails when you go to Cuba, and
Yeah,
if they know your press, like Nat Geo, then it's probably, like, hyper rails.
right. Yes, and so exactly, and so there's also, there's always like a question of whether um, someone like me um, can be trusted or what my intentions are, and so like with this project was one of the projects that I could never really photograph because I mean I heard the stories and I even met a few people who knew people who went or um, who were maybe planning on going, but because it's like, the nature of the story is so sensitive and this is a story about escape and power. And Cuba is a relatively small country, right? Everyone knows everyone. So even if I had the access and was able to photograph, the preparation, the leaving on the journey, the arrival in Florida, um, would it endanger Cubans who are still in Cuba? This was a story that I clearly could not photograph. So with AI, I sort of imagined what the story may look like and the content, the words I used in the prompting came from, the years, the time I spent in Cuba, the research I made through Cuban friends or online or um, and so, yeah, and I was working on this just kind of on my own, and then a collector friend of mine, Blackbird, saw the work and, had this idea of, making an NFT drop. So he curated about 400 images from the project that sort of follows a loose chronological arc. So right now, the minting is around the time of the embassy crisis, which, I'm sure as a Cuban, obviously, like in the '80s, the crisis at the embassies, at the Peruvian embassy, and um, where like a bunch of Cubans came in and basically occupied the embassy. And at some point, Fidel said, "Okay, you guys can leave." And then it led to this this mass exodus. There's been a few of those over the years where the Cubans could just leave without having to like escape. Um, But yeah, so the idea was to sort of like show conditions, everyday conditions, and show major historical events that sort of um, inspired, motivated, et cetera, Cubans to leave. And then what the journey may look like. I mean, if you go on Google and you make a Google image search for the kinds of vessels, rafts that are used, um, there's a pretty wide ranging variety. It's really amazing. I mean, people will travel all the way into Florida with an inner tube or like a windsurfer board or modified cars even um, that that are literally cars that have been made into boats. So the ingenuity and the resourcefulness of the Cubans anyway is world famous. But like um, that went into my prompting as well, and then like imagining what the journey is like, and then going off reports of what it's like and the kind of food they eat, and then what happens along the way. Sometimes you're lost at sea, sometimes you're shipwrecked, sometimes you arrive in, the Keys and like an island in the middle of nowhere without anyone there. So sort of, and then the arrival in Florida, right? Like what that looks like, where they come ashore. Um, and so, yeah, but of course I understand that it's a, it's a very sensitive story. And so one of the questions I had for myself initially is if I should even do it. But it was a story that always really inspired me, and that for me really captured part of the Cuban situation. Because while I was in Cuba, um, I would say for sure most of my friends there, um, they love Cuba. It's not like they want to leave. Cuba is an amazing place. But it's just that they want to leave, and so they have opportunity, and so they can make money. But at the end of the day, they actually would rather live in Cuba.
Yeah, it's
Um,
actually fascinating. I've been once to Cuba, and for context, my grandmother fled Cuba when she was a young child. She was like one of 7 or 8 kids, and 2 of them made it to the States, and only one survives now, and that's my great uncle. He's
oh wow.
awesome, but yeah, they like as people who left, they obviously back and they miss it, because it's a lovely place, but they hate the kind of regime of the government. It's obviously part of the big reason why they left. But when you go visit there, people like have such a positive attitude. They love their government. In many instances, they actually like really despise the U.S. government for plenty of good and valid reasons, and then frankly some that I think are less valid. But it's really interesting because they kind of live in this information bubble in many ways. Access to the internet is challenging when you're there, especially as a foreigner. The citizens have built their own LAN network that connects the entire island. So it's not the regular internet that has external access, but they can all connect to each other. And it's just fascinating how inventive they've been, not just like with the boats and stuff that they use to go. I mean, it's like 100-mile journey, I guess. It's not as far as people would think, but enough to get lost at sea for sure. But yeah, they're inventive with those rafts and those boats, and inventive with their internet. I mean, it's pretty cool the ingenuity of the people. Um, that's so cool. So your whole approach with that piece above is like, okay, I don't have the access needed to get these types of photos, but I've heard these stories, these myths, these legends. And also maybe there was part of you that wanted to protect the anonymity of the people that you would otherwise, if you did have access to them, be photographing because the government might come after them or whatever. So you basically took stories that have been interpreted and passed along by humans and kind of have maybe mutated over time just through oral traditions. And then you took those as an outsider and then passed them along to an AI. And through several iterations, we basically got what we see above.
Yes,
That
100%.
is so cool.
And
I
that,
mean, it changed like when you think about how an AI can change the way stories mutate and what oral traditions and folklore actually mean. It's kind of profound, and I don't think we really even understand it or are close to understanding it yet.
yes, 100%. I mean, and of course, much of the imagery is sort of the early days of Midjourney. I mean, I began experimenting with AI last year over the summer, but it was always for me, the imagery was too illustrative. So, like, it was around the end of next year, the early part of this year, that I began seeing imagery online and realizing like, oh wow, okay, so now it's at a place where it really captured my interest. And but of course there's many mistakes that quote unquote mistakes in the imagery. But I think it's as like someone who's been sort of who's tried in his own photography, and I think it's also the commercial influence and growing up working at the newspapers. It's like a lot of times in my own work, I try and create an image that is like maybe maybe not perfect, but that whereas it may be like in focus with a certain composition or whatever. So the AI process it has been so good for me because it's allowed me to sort of loosen up and accept that like what in the past I may see as a mistake is actually something that I think gives the imagery a little strength, and it's the new technology and the influence of AI as a collaborator and has and um, uh, as an engine that was trained on like hundreds of millions of images that is all language based, and so it really is. It's kind of a puzzle um, while making these because it's all about the kinds of words that I choose and the order in which I arrange them, and yeah, I mean going back before I became a photographer is really my dad was always into photography and like had a dark room in our house. And so when I was very young, like around 12 or 13, I learned how to use a camera and how to process film and everything. So like it was always a skill that I had. But um, when I was in high school, like what really inspired me was mythology and art history and realizing the power of imagery and the effect that it can have on our lives. And of course, like uh, before photography, everything essentially was an illustration. Um, and so, the stories we have from since the very beginning of our time is like have always kind of been illustrations and have always been sort of communications that were that were imperfect and that like had holes in them. And, but at the end of the day, it's about the message. It's about this universal message, right? And, the story that we're trying to communicate. So going back into the 90 miles work, for sure, it's, there's a lot of mistakes and a lot of holes. And there's, but at the same time, I feel like it's somehow illustrating the journey and perhaps, generating some more interest or even empathy around, the story of, um, uh, y- that actually in the past year has happened more than any time since, the 80s or the 90s. And so it is an ongoing project, an ongoing story that a lot of people are living and being affected by. And I think also partly when I was getting into photography, I would look a lot at the New Yorker and other magazines that were using photography, but they would also use illustrations. And, they still do. And the illustrations are often used when there is no photograph, but it's like a way to bring you into the story and understand uh, something about it visually that maybe cannot be expressed in words. Yeah.
I totally feel that. I mean, when I look at what's capable with I tend to take the glass half full view of things. I like you feel like AI has unlocked creativity that's always existed within me, but I was not able to express. And in many ways, it's turned me into a superhuman, not just with creative things, but also analytical things and actual work I do for my clients. So I am very optimistic with the AI revolution. With that said, I totally acknowledge some of the risks. I mean, there quite literally is an arms race going on here, which is kind of scary to think about. But what I get really excited about, and it's a reason I actually love anime. Like I've always been drawn to anime and I couldn't quite put my finger on why. And then one day it kind of occurred to me that, I realized, one, it's a audio plus visual medium, which for me, I tend to enjoy that a little bit more than books. With your books, your imagination can run wild and fill in the gaps. Whereas with an anime or a cartoon, it's a little bit more prescriptive because they're not just giving you the script, but they're giving you the visuals as well. But what's really cool about anime is the creator has so much control over exactly what you're seeing. I mean, to the point where they can create things that aren't real that you could never capture in real life with a camera. They can exaggerate certain things to really get a point across, almost in like a caricature way, kind of like how um, theater was way back when. They really emphasized things, partially because like the viewers were far away and like things needed to be exaggerated for them to be understood. But I think it was also just part of the style back then. But when I look at um, AI, I see a similar opportunity from a kind of um, first principles or grounds up approach. Creators are able to control literally every aspect, from the real to complete fantasy and like sci-fi elements of their creations. They're able to create an entire world from the ground up and control literally every single pixel that you see. You don't have to get caught up in building props and arranging people and getting the right actor and then having them slightly kind of like reinterpret things in their own way. And now it's not exactly how you intended it to be. It's mutated, which I think that's also cool. Like I like how things can be interpreted and changed, but I think the level of control a creator has from what's in their brain to what is ultimately consumed in the end medium, it seems a lot more direct now with AI. And as people get better at prompt writing and controlling more specific parameters, I think we're going to see that gap close so that you start to really tap into what's ultimately like the raw creative power of the human mind and bringing those visions into life in the most direct and rapid way possible. And that's what gets me super excited about the AI movement. And we're really just getting started.
Yes, that is su that is it, 100%. It's like this sort of getting rid of, the barriers that exist between our vision and the work that we create and release into the world. And it's just getting yeah, it just so happens that, like, now for the still photograph, anyone can be like a movie director or, we we can literally create anything we want with the still photograph, which is up until now, you would need to know, like, Photoshop super high end or, yeah, these other tools, and so you can create something that, like, looks photographic, and especially if you wanna, um, make a whole series around that, but, yeah, we're just kind of getting to we're getting to the point to where that, the tech barrier is going away. Um, super, super exciting time.
Yeah. Guys, I see many people in the audience that joined, and I just want to encourage anyone that wants to hop up on stage, share your thoughts, ask some questions, to request the mic. So yeah, if anyone wants to hop up on stage, feel free to request the mic. Yeah, and Valko, just to share quickly my AI story. A couple of days ago, I tried Mid Journey for the first time. And it's actually not that simple, like you have some sort of skill attached to it, right? All the prompting, all the, setting up. And so what I specifically wanted to do is, like create the thank you message for its 5,000 followers, right? And I figured that it's not very good with text.
It's terrible with
So,
text. Oh my gosh.
but, but but I was surprised to figure it out. So all this to say, there's a lot of talk about AI, but I can only like encourage people to try it out for yourself. So yeah, just download it and give it a play. And it's not as simple. It's not like a 2-click thing. It's it's there's still skill to it.
Yeah, I personally found Midjourney a little bit more challenging to get a hold of than ChatGPT. And now, with all the Bard threads, I've been trying to dive into Bard. I haven't really explored much of its new features other than summarizing articles, because there are a few articles I just have on my reading list that I haven't made time for because I'm reading some other books. But I had Bard kind of give me the cliff notes on the articles, and I was pretty impressed with that. But yeah, Midjourney, like, there's a lot more to it than I think meets the eye, and I'm still scratching the surface. One of my favorite things to do with Midjourney has been um, having it create logos and designs based on the style of other like very well known artists, whether that's maybe like somebody who made an anime or a cartoon, or perhaps like a famous logo designer who made the logos for Apple or other big companies. That can yield some pretty amazing results. Actually, this Punk's Roundtable microphone was made. I forget the name of the famous designer, but it was made in the style of a very famous black and white color minimalist designer, which definitely fun.
I see, I see. Hey, MCB, maybe I have a couple of questions for you then. Well, firstly, what does MCB stand for?
Yeah, MCB stands for my full name, which is Michael Christopher Brown, which I began using all three names when I was living in New York years ago. Was at a
I
camera
see.
store and I was renting some equipment, and the woman who was at the register, she asked me my name, and I said Michael Brown. She's like, "Which Michael Brown are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I live in Brooklyn, if that helps." And she's like, "Which Michael Brown in Brooklyn?" And there's like a list of like a few dozen Michael Browns. This is at a camera shop, right? So it's one of the most common names. So I began using my middle name. But anyway, here it's yeah, I just go by MCB. A lot of people just call me MCB. So I use it.
Nice, nice. No, because I've seen it around on Twitter a lot, and it was like always this question in my mind: what does it stand for? You know, and then now finally get the answer. But also, like, maybe you can share like your origin story into Web3 and how you got started with NFTs. I'm not sure I know that.
Oh yeah, sure thing. Yeah. So in 2021, was in the Congo. I used to live in the Congo in the DRC, in the eastern city of Goma, and I was there for 2 weeks leading a workshop. I lead these workshops every year. I'm gonna be there again next month. Actually, if anyone's interested in going, we still have one slot. Um, these are these are workshops, but they're also like traveling expeditions. Really fun. We see a lot of beautiful parts of Congo, which, of course, in the news generally is we just read about the negative things happening, but this um, it's an amazingly beautiful place. But anyway, I was there a couple years ago, and at the end of the workshop, I had COVID, so I was in this hotel room for a couple weeks, and I couldn't really go anywhere. So I'm on Clubhouse, and I learn about blockchain. Um, I had heard about it before. I had like briefly invested in Ethereum in 2017, and I still had a little bit of Ethereum, but I'd kind of forgotten about it. I was like in these rooms and read the BTC white paper, and then I read it again, and I watched films on Amazon about blockchain. So I was really into blockchain and this idea of the tech for this is like in February 2021 that I'm learning about this. And I remember the time actually, I remember seeing the Bored Ape um, rooms a couple months after that and thinking like, what is this? Like I couldn't, I couldn't really understand it. And even for photography, I would see the photography rooms in Clubhouse in like March or April. And I was thinking, okay, like he didn't really click for me. But over the summer, like July and August 2021 is really when I began to understand what it what it could mean for an artist and the importance of it. Um, and so that's when I just, began kind of dropping in and trying to figure out what the space was and what it would mean for me. And yeah.
And what led you to punks and why this specific one?
So yeah, this one I got because of my daughter. She inspired the punk. I also like the red hair punks, but her name is Poppy, and the state flower, the red flower, and this is a female punk, and I love the nerd glasses too. I've always loved the nerd glasses. Uh, but yeah, the punk I bought the punk in 2021 as well, and it was just like um was of course like a huge investment for me to buy it, and it was months, before before I decided I would. Um, but I sort of it is, for me, it's really about like just again, coming into the space like really not from the NFT side, but coming in to the Web3 space, like more from the blockchain sort of, the tech side in some ways. Um, um, the token, the power of the token and, the scarcity of that and what the punks represent. Um, for me, is just, you know, is even if it all goes 0, it's a worthwhile investment for me, you know?
Did you have any punks you did you have any punks you looked up on back in the days that inspired you to buy a punk and not some other profile picture?
I mean, yeah, I mean, coming into the space, I was actually before I was into NFTs, I was already following DC Investor and Path and Crypto Cobain, people like this, um, who would talk about the punks, and so I sort of, um, knew a fair amount about the punks even before coming into the NFT space. Um, so so hearing about the history of the punks and seeing, the punks held by a certain community within the Web3 space and, realizing that it was now, an asset, something that, was not going away, and something that in a way represents the whole space and, the tech from the culture side, um, was just really a no-brainer for me.
I'm a big fan of CC Investor's content. He's on my CryptoPunk super nerds list. People who just like are constantly dropping really like deeply thought out tweets, like the 6529s of the world. I've always enjoyed his content. Super good.
Yeah, same here. I mean, one of my inspirations is to, eventually, maybe if not even reach that level, but, bring some sort of pride to my punk and to the punks that are creating such content. So, I definitely think, yeah, those kind of guys, they really like elevate the punks. But the punk you rock now, was that your first punk or not?
Yes. Yes, and I got another one, recently, actually.
Oh yeah?
Um, yeah, that I got from a Blur bid. Um, I mean, I had, yeah, because I had a Bored Ape actually for a while, for, like, over a year, and, certainly fortunately, I only saw profits, from that, but then essentially, I sold that, and then I got, another Punk, and I got a Squiggle and, some other stuff, but yeah, this one I have now, I don't plan on ever selling. I may sell the other one because it looks a lot like another Punk. Um,
Well, what's the other one? What does it look like?
uh, uh, well, without going into specifics, I think it's a member of the community that is not, um, really looked very fondly upon. So I sort of, uh, realized I bought a Punk that was very close to, uh, someone who had kind of been outcast out of the punks community, which
Oh my gosh.
which is kind of, at the
I
end of
can
the
I
day,
can
it's
think
kind
of a
I mean,
few
I
for
didn't even
sure.
know this until recently because I was at Consensus and I was at a punks breakfast and, we're showing our punks and someone's like, "Oh, wait, you have, like, so and so's punk." And I was like, "Who's that?" Like, and he said, "Oh, you don't know about this guy?" He's like, "Da, da, da." So I was like, "Okay, well, maybe I should sell it." I don't know,
It's so
it's
funny.
interesting for me, but whatever.
It's
It's,
kind of hilarious how
yeah.
that like provenance is now like locked into the punk forever. And it'll take a much more virtuous new owner who's willing to brave the forces against him to redefine what that aesthetic and attribute means for the world.
Wait. So
Right.
is that punk public? You're open about it? What's the number?
The exact number, that's a oh, man.
Because now I'm like super
Let's
curious.
see.
Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
you threw us a
Yeah, I
bone,
think
and
it's
I'm like,
actually it's not the same. Yeah, so it's Punk, 3004.
okay, I'll
So,
look it up and I'll try to pin it.
yeah, when you see it, you'll, here, I'll send it to you. Um, I like it, because it's also a female. I like the female punks, and it also has nerd glasses, which I like, and an earring,
But you don't plan to
um,
change your
which I
PFP,
wish my punk had an earring. No, no, no. No, I don't plan to. I mean, I plan on giving it to my daughter once she's old enough, um, which will probably be a number of years, of course. She's only 4, so
Amazing. Hopefully she doesn't, hopefully she doesn't blow it all on Bored Apes. Just kidding.
yeah, exactly. Or on, opening like a tattoo parlor in Thailand or something,
Yeah, she's
which
she's
no, I'm
gonna
not
sell the
against
punk and put it all on,
completely, but
Pepe.
hey, Pepe's gonna come back at some point, right?
Yeah.
I was looking into it and I was realizing actually Pepe is a way bigger meme than the Dogecoin, right? Because Pepe goes back into '05 or something, whereas Doge, I think, was started in 2013.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Oh, man. The meme coin thing, I've definitely, kept at arm's length. I've just been watching from afar, but it's absolutely fascinating. And I know yesterday there was a big uproar about, BitBoy and $Ben, and I haven't even kept up with that, but, it seems like there's a bunch of, outrage on things he said, I guess, on a Twitter space, but I don't know about any of that. So switching gears a little bit, what's up with this podcast you're scheming? You want to share a little bit about it? Because we recently started this. It was meant to be a Twitter space because we just frankly wanted to get a bunch of punks together to talk about cool shit. Because we love the IRL meetups, and we figured we would try to get a cadence of virtual meetups going. And then we were recording them. We're like, might as well start publishing it as a podcast. And so it sort of evolved from just a Twitter space hangout to a recurring podcast twice a week. So we are new to the podcast grind. I think this is like episode 16 or something for us. I'm not totally sure, but I would be curious to hear like what has inspired you to start your podcast? Like, who are you doing it with? When does it start? What's it about? Blah, blah, blah.
yeah, thanks. I mean, COVID a few years ago when COVID hit, I was here and our daughter was young, and I was sort of was spending a lot of time online. So I started my own podcast at that time that was just conversations with friends and colleagues in the photography world, essentially. Um, so I did like half a dozen episodes. I recorded more that I never posted, actually. But this one is basically the this is a collaboration with Robert LeBlanc, who's a photographer in the NFT space too. Um, he's an artist, and he just he's really inspired by um, uh, these podcasts out there that are more episodic, and that he saw that like there's a way to do the podcasting with audio with visual reporting. And so the idea is that we do interviews, but we also go out and do on the ground investigations, essentially into subjects that we who who we meet and record, and it's really like a way to like a lot of podcasts when uh, when they run, they may reference uh, photos, or videos, or pieces of content that they reference is often really not created by the people who are hosting the show. And of course, because of who the hosts are, Robert and I, our strength is actually um, really being on the ground and visually reporting. and um, and getting these stories that are oftentimes like hard to get. So the idea is that we bring our audience on the road and we're reporting, but we're also like sharing our experience. And there's another friend of mine who created a tool which hasn't been completely released yet, but this is like this is a new way to experience podcasts. Um, Often with podcasts, we have the show notes that are at the very end of the show that you can link to. Um, this new tool essentially is a way to link into the notes while you're listening. So,
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I
It's
think
just
it'll be
easier to kind of like being able to
exactly.
pin a tweet up here by doing it via like a standard podcast format.
Yeah, exactly. And so, for example, if you're like on YouTube listening to whichever podcast while while the time is moving, you can click on the timeline and actually go into the link for whatever's being referenced on the show. And then you can go to that link. And then while you're listening, still, you can be looking at that link. So you're still like in the experience while you're seeing what is being spoken about. So yeah. And so that's our idea basically is making, we have a whole season lined up, a couple seasons actually in mind, but, yeah, the first one will focus on the psychedelics, um, which have been like, uh, for me, I had PTSD like 6 years ago that was really, really bad and basically, um, tried all kinds of, um, uh, therapy and like hypnotherapy and every kind of like holistic practice that I could think of and get involved in, but it was really, psychedelics really helped kind of open me to, um, realizing who I was and what I needed to kind of, uh, really deal with and allowed me to integrate, um, in a way that like felt very generative and really changed my life. And as a result of that, I met a lot of people, um, who are in the space who are now friends. And, there's just a lot of exciting things happening in that space that I think, many of them are in the news, but there's also, a lot of unknown stories, uh, that I'm excited to share with the world. So I think we do that in combination with video and still imagery and probably artificial intelligence as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. So,
Yeah, that's super exciting. I think there's such a strong overlap,
mhm.
honestly, that I've observed between the DeFi community and some of the psychedelics community. I don't know why. I just perhaps it's just the general concept of open-mindedness, maybe, or maybe like the unknown. But there definitely seems to be an overlap in the two communities. There's also just like a huge cult around mushrooms, not even necessarily like the psychedelic kind, but like people just love mushrooms. Like they're just these like freaky specimen, and like they you hear all these crazy stories about the like hive mind or super intelligence of mushroom colonies, or I think it was Japan that they famously use they built like a prototype or mock city with nodes representing the different hubs of the city, and then they dropped like mushroom spores in it, and they basically, as the mushroom network developed, they used its highways that it created to model how they eventually went and like civilly engineered the entire city, because the mushroom was just like the most efficient specimen at like creating these highways basically between its own nodes in the network. So there's a whole cult of mushroom. You could do a whole episode on just
Yeah.
that.
Yes, and the slime molds operate kind of in the same way, right? It's like the hypha that's in the mycelium. Essentially, it's a decentralized network. So a hypha can sort of grow and learn, um, on its own, which is just which is yeah. I mean, there's a lot of connections between the way mycelium works and, the decentralized networks. Um, it super fascinating.
Yeah, that would be a really cool topic for the episode. Just like exactly dig into the similarities between how like DeFi has come to shape, you know, like and disrupt TradFi, versus like I don't know, just like how mushrooms operate. I would listen to that like all day long. You could probably go for hours and hours on that.
Yeah, there's actually someone who speaks really well to this and already has a number of times is Dave Krugman. I don't know if you know, he's a photographer in the space, really successful photographer in the space. He speaks like he has um, he has some really good ideas about this. There's a
Is he
book
this
called Entangled Life.
all ships?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Cool.
He'd be a great guest for you. I'm sure he could really expand on that. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Cool.
He'd be a great guest for you. I'm sure he could really expand on that, idea.
Yeah, I'm just pinning a random
He's
link
given
for
that a lot
him,
of thought.
so people can follow him if they want. Who I
Mhm.
see, somebody requested to come up. I'll invite you up here. If you got any thoughts on mycelium and DeFi? What's up, DJT Soy?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, good. We like the big shades.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Big shades of famine here.
Yeah, glasses only. What's up? What's on your mind, man?
I'm doing good. We just put out a punkcast with Maxwell, so that went live today on Spotify. So you guys can go check it out.
Amazing. Yeah, we are big fans of what Maxwell is doing. He is capturing the punk culture for everyone. And I think I got on like episode 6, but now he's like, what episode number were you? Like 60 or something? I mean, he's been just cranking them out like absolute
I,
machine.
I think I'm 53 or 54. But yeah, actually, the other day I was listening to Wherever Punk's one. So yeah, that was really good. Great to hear the story behind the marketplace, man.
Thanks. Thanks for giving a listen. I saw your episode came out today. It's on my to listen list for sure.
Awesome, man.
MCB, have you done a punks cast yet?
Punk's Cast. What is that?
Oh, you got to do it. So Maxwell, he's got an orange beanie punk. He runs this podcast called Punks Cast, and they're on episode 55. But he basically is trying to capture the punk behind every punk. Almost like imagine the way I've always kind of interpreted what he's doing is like, imagine if on the Punk's marketplace website with every transaction and owner, there was like also an audio file of their story of like coming into punks, why they love punks, what they think punk culture is, within the context of broader punk culture, but also crypto punks punk culture. And he's trying to capture the essence of crypto punks really by talking to crypto punks and hearing their stories. So I've done one, Forever Punks has done one. I mean, tons of I think Hemba did one recently. I mean, there's an amazing collection. I'll be sure to send you the link, but yeah, Maxwell is a legend for putting this stuff out. And I think there's a lot of overlap in what we're doing. Ours is a little bit more of an interactive spaces format, where his is almost like this amazing archive. Um, but yeah, definitely check it out. And if you feel like getting on a podcast, and that's definitely one I couldn't recommend more highly.
Yeah, 100%. I would love that. Is there like at some point I thought I heard about a website that was being created for the punks, right? Specifically, and so we could have like our profiles there and more information about, like, is that connected with what you're talking about?
Well, there's Punks Club, which
Or
is
is
done by Voitech, which like has the map and token gated events and a directory so that if you have a punk, you can connect to this website and basically see what cities punks live in. You can check in and check out of the cities you're traveling to. You can post events like the meetup I hosted in LA, and it's all token gated. So you're not going to post the address to an event and have some randoms show up that aren't crypto punks. So that's a pretty cool website for helping punks basically connect in real life when Discord and Telegram fails because messages get lost in time. Um, Punk's Cast is just a separate project. I mean, we're all good friends. I think Wojtek might have even been on Punkcast at some point. But yeah, Punk's Cast is just Maxwell's podcast capturing the essence of punks. And then, of course, Forever Punks has his website, which is just a much better way to like filter through punks and find your Forever Punks. And now he's actually taken it a step further and is building this pretty cool decentralized marketplace for punks that lets you actually like do collection bids, not just across like the entire collection, but across specific like A and B like filters for attributes. So I could basically place a collection bid on messy hair and nerd glasses, or like red hair and nerd glasses, and I wouldn't need ETH for every bid because in the Punks website, of course, your Ethereum gets locked up. You would be able to just kind of use like just like you can use a one wrapped ETH to place many one ETH bids on OpenSea. He's created the same functionality for now a CryptoPunks marketplace, which is massive for liquidity. I think.
Valko, you're such a good salesman. If I'd have the money, I'd hire you for sure. Know that you know that yeah, we're working on this platform, this app, and now we're also going to roll out shortly notifications, right? So let's say you're in the market for a hoodie punk. You'll be able to set notify me when there's a hoodie punk that drops in price or that gets listed, and then you'll be able to scoop it up. So things like this we're working on.
Yeah, I loved it because like back in the day before your website existed, the way I would look for like multiple attributes at once is in the URL bar. Like you can always click on messy hair and see all the messy hairs, and then in a separate window you could see all the nerd glasses. But if you like extract the text data from the URL and append it to like one of the other attribute searches, then you get the like messy hair and nerd glasses. And I thought, I'm not a technical guy, so I thought I was so clever when I figured that out. And I was like, look at me. I can look at the punks in a way other people can't, and I can do comparable price analysis in a way that other people can't. And then Forever Punks came along and made it just way easier for non-technical people like me.
Yeah. I mean, already that's pretty technical what you described over there. But yeah, MCB, I would recommend you hang out, on these punk sites and in the punks community a bit. There's some pretty cool stuff being built.
Yeah, I'm just on your the website now. It's great, man. I love it. I had no idea that it existed. I don't know why this
Yeah, I mean, and to be very honest, the hardest part is to
so
spread the
cool.
word and do the marketing. Like that's kind of what I should be focusing on, and I'm focusing on as well. But it's spreading the word
Wow,
because guys like Yuga, they just naturally have a million followers, whereas smaller projects, it's always a bit harder.
Yeah,
100%.
and then definitely check out Punks Club MCB because you know I think New York and LA have the highest density of CryptoPunk holders according to the Punks Club map. So I think there's like something around 4,000 punk holders, and over 400 are signed up on Punks Club. So you can actually like when I threw my LA event, the first thing I did is I went to this map. I saw all of the people that were there, and I sent them like a DM or an invite or something. So that's definitely a good way to connect IRL. But you might already be on there because that might be how I found you in the first place.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Are there going to be any early events anytime soon? Have you guys planned anything for the summer?
I'll be
I'm
going
trying to
to
do a
Lisbon.
July 4th. I'm trying to do a July 4th
Oh,
one in LA potentially, but it's tough because the fourth falls like midweek. So we'll see.
nice.
I'll be in NFT Lisbon. Valko, you said you might be coming over.
I'm definitely doing permissionless in Austin. Um, but I'm not sure about East Lisbon, but I'd like to go because I freaking love Portugal.
Yeah.
If you guys are ever out here in Hong Kong, shoot us a message. So I'm actually having lunch with Maxwell and Daft Punk tomorrow. They're both
Oh,
based in Hong Kong.
nice.
So we'll have a mini meetup. But yeah, feel free to DM me if you guys ever come by this way.
Amazing. Yeah, I don't have any Hong Kong trips this year, but I think next year we'll be going. So I'll definitely reach out, man. And I definitely want to. It'd be cool if you, me, and Maxwell got together. Um, We could do some crazy tourist shit.
All right, Valko. Anything else we want to talk about, or should we call it a day slowly?
I think let's call it a day. I've got to do a couple of meetings, couple of interviews, and hop on a flight. So, MCB, thanks so much for offering up your time and telling us your story and everything you've been working on. It's been really fun getting to
Thank you.
hang out with you again after meeting you in real life. And please come back anytime. We'd love to have you and let us know. Shoot me a DM once your podcast launches. I'll give it a retweet so that everybody here from this audience can give it a listen because I'm definitely super excited to listen in on your first season there.
Very cool. Thank you so much, man. It was great to chat with you here. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do more in the future. Want to get you on our thing too once it's up and running. But
Yeah, man,
yeah,
100%.
appreciate
And
this
we'll touch base IRL in LA soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
for sure.
And guys, everyone,
Right.
please follow the account, the Twitter account of this podcast. We'll be posting all the stuff over there, and you'll get notified when we do these episodes.
Yep. All right. See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Yes.